All right, we are on Oholot Perek Tet Mishnah Yud Bet, 12th Mishnah in the 9th chapter of Masechet Oholot. We're continuing with the kaveret, this hive on its side, outside. We learned in Mishnah Yud Aleph what happens if it's less than a tefach off the ground. We're talking about a kaveret that's a kli. It's not an ohel. So therefore, haita gavoha min haaretz tefach. If it was a tefach off the ground, now remember, once it's a tefach off the ground, then it has the power to transfer tuma under it. Okay, tuma tachteha o gaba. If there's tuma under it or on top of it, hakol tameh ela tocha. Everything is tameh except for the inside of it. Because as we learned, let's make it a little bigger. Remember that once the tuma is on top of it, I'm going to not move it around. Once the tuma is on top of it here, it goes under it, and then it transfers it all across under it. So if there's tuma under it, it goes on top of it, it goes above. The tuma spreads because there's a tefach. The tuma spreads over here, and it goes all around it, except not inside it. That's what the Mishnah says. Ela tocha. But betocha, if there's tuma inside of it, hakol tameh, then everything is tameh. Says the Mishnah. When is this true? Bisman shehi keli, when it's a kli, as we said explicitly. But the Bartanura says it doesn't say mechulchelet, okay, or afutza. Remember, we had the two options in the beginning of the chapter of mechulchelet, which had these holes in it, or afutza. And he says the reason it isn't because it's not relevant outside in the open. It's only relevant in the house. I don't understand this. I'm not entirely sure why. It's important to acknowledge. It's very important to acknowledge that this is this Mishnah is very, very challenging for many of the Mefarshim in the Mishnah. Why does it say here, Bizman Shehu Keli? It doesn't say Mechul Chelet. And therefore they have to go through incredible permutations to try to explain this Mishnah. We're just explaining it according to the simple explanation of the Bartanura, but it gets much, much more complicated. If you want to go into it, you can in great depth. Because the Mishnah says, what's the other option? If it's not a kli, haita ptucha ubekuka, pchuta if it's pchuta ubekuka, if it's damaged at the bottom and then stopped up, bekash with straw. Oh, machzeket arba'im sa. Here it says the other option is if it's a kli that holds arba'im sa, which we've seen before, but we didn't see it in the first Mishnah, which seems to imply that before it wasn't talking about that, it was talking about some other case. Again, this is something that not for Mishnah Yomi, but it's a topic if you want to learn in depth. There's plenty of deep to go. So, or it holds arba'im sa k'divrei chachamim, like the position of the chachamim. Actually, the Bartanura says the Tanna Kama holds that a kli that holds arba'im sa'ah is not an ohel, meaning in the first Mishnayot. But anyway, we'll leave it. So therefore, if it is an ohel, if this kaveret is an ohel, because it's either stopped up with straw, it was damaged and stopped up, or if it's too big, like the Chamim say, then kazayit min hameit natun tachteha. If there's a kazayit of the mate under it, now remember, we're not now it's not a tefach high, so therefore, if there's a kazayit of the mate under it, then kinegdo ad tehom tameh. Then it only goes down. Remember, because now let's look at our picture now. Here we are. And now we look at this picture. Let's try to make it bigger, right? If it's an ohel, the ohel blocks it. Okay, so therefore, if there's a kazayit under it, all you do is, right, anything under it is tahor. That's what the Mishnah says. Since it's now an ohel, you see here it's kuka or whatever, it's stopped up, and so therefore, if the ohel blocks, it doesn't go up and down, it only goes down. Therefore, that's what we said. If kazayit miramet natun tachteha, kinogdo ad tehom tameh, only under it is under tameh. Al gaba, above it, kinegdo ad harakia tameh, only above it is tameh. Betocha, if there's tuma inside of it, then ain't tameh ela tocha, because the kli itself is an ohel blocking above and below. But haita gavoa mina aretz tefach, if it's above the ground at tefach, remember they're not in a house, so the house can't spread it. Tuma tachteha tameh. So if there's tuma under it, then it's tameh under it. Oh, because remember it's an ohel, and all you get if it's above the ground at tefach, tuma under it, then under there is tameh. Tuma over it, nothing. There's no tuma. Betocha, inside of it, tocha tameh. Al gaba, but if it's above it, then only kinegdo adarakia, then it's only above, because remember, there's nothing to spread. So if there's tuma under it, it spreads. Tuma inside, it spreads. Tuma above, then all you got is above. Do I have another picture of above? That's the only picture I have. That's kind of obvious. Let's fill in the chart that we had. So here, all three of these categories, all three of these are in Mishnah Yud Bet. I'll move myself over here. Here, these three. Okay, if it's not a kli, if it's only a kli, then tuma under it or on top of it, everything is tameh. Inside of it, everything is tameh. If the tuma is on top or below, then the kli protects what's inside of it. If the tuma is inside of it, everything is tameh. But if it's not a kli, if it's an ohel in these two cases, if it's an ohel, okay, these two cases, then above and below are tamei, but the kli blocks. If there's tuma under it, okay, if there's tuma under it, and there is a tefach, then the whole thing becomes tamei. And inside of it, only inside of it is tamei. It's really relatively straightforward. Once you learn the rules, you can apply the rules in general to these cases as well. We'll stop here, dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Comments, questions? Send me a WhatsApp or an email or a Telegram. So many people joining Telegram. Make it a great day.